The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast NH. I'm Deborah Monk, empowering you to find your creative voice. And today I am so excited we welcome Chris Trapper. Chris Trapper is a storyteller. He's a songwriter and a storyteller with his soulful, honeyed tenor, sly humor, and an uncanny knack for melody. Chris has traveled the world over, performing to a dedicated and ever-growing fan base with nothing but his guitar and his songs. Raised on Prine and Christofferson, Trapper's first foray into the music industry was as a frontman of the critically acclaimed alternate rock band The Push Stars. As a singer and songwriter, Chris is most known for his original song, This Time, the #1 selling song on the Grammy-nominated soundtrack for August Rush with Robin Williams. His music can best be described as lyrically driven roots pops with a knack for telling everyday stories, and the New York Times has called his work classic pop perfection. So welcome, Chris. We are so happy to have you. You are our very first songwriter.
Oh, I'm so glad this worked out. This is awesome.
Yes. And the way that I came to know of you is I'm in a writing group with Stephen Croak, who is the producer of the movie The Busker.
Yes,
and
of course.
You had a small acting part in that, and ironically as a record store clerk, and you also had a song, The Valentine Lonely, in that movie.
Yeah, Valentine. Yep, that's right.
So then a group of us, well, at that point, Steve was writing a different story, and Steve has said, you are the best songwriter out there, and you also have a heart of gold as a person. And that anything he was writing, he would always want to have a part for you. And so he told us about this. He was working on a story, and our group then went to Chelmsford to hear you sing. And as soon as we saw you sing, Kelly and I, the only two women in the group, said you were way too sexy for that part, and he needed to write another part for you. And the good news is, I will tell you, his work, I can't give away any of the secrets because we all know what happens in writer's group stays in writer's group. But Steve is working on a project right now that is really good. And when he said he would always have a part for you, I jumped in and said, I thought you should play XYZ, and he completely agreed. And it's the best part in his story. So that we have something to look forward to.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. He's a great guy.
Yes.
Very talented.
He's very talented, very funny. So can you tell us, how do you write a song? Do you do the lyrics, the melody? How does it happen?
Well, it happens all different ways because the creative process, you really can't control it. It kind of happens when it happens and how it happens. But my general answer for this is that I tend to sing melodies into whatever recording device is local for me at that time. So back in the day, it used to be a micro cassette player, which you still see them sometimes in thrift stores, but used and broken. And then now I sing into my phone. But basically, I'll kind of step away at parties, at meetings, at home, whenever. You just sing little melodies into whatever recording device that I have, then collect them. So right now on my phone, I probably have me singing little video snippets of short melodies. And I probably have about 900 of them.
You're kidding.
No. So then I'll sift through those. I'll listen back maybe during a long drive and kind of see if any melody sticks out to me as being either unique or catchy or genuine, or just having something special about them. That time I'll kind of extract that mentally and go to my guitar and see if any chords fit with that melody. And it sounds much more complicated than it is, but then I'll play chords with it, and then if everything flows at that point, I'll add lyrics last, because lyrics for me are kind of the most important thing, because that's something that's your signature. That's what will have meaning, and that's what also makes a song last. So if a song's catchy and good with a bad lyric, you don't only get so far into people's consciousness, but if there's a good, meaningful lyric, like I can still listen to U2 songs from 1989 and still really believe it and really feel it because, or Springsteen or whoever the greats are, because the lyrics still stand up as being authentic and thoughtful. So that's the last part.
But you
And
really
that's a-
need you really
I'm sorry?
need cadence in order to be able to put the lyrics in, and this is why it would be important to have the structure of the song set up so you know how much time you have to fill with X number of syllables, I would imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like I compare it to a crossword puzzle where you just gradually fill it in, and some of the stuff comes very easily, and then some of the stuff you really struggle with. But that can, and kind of the easier it is, usually the better it is. But the harder it is sometimes that has value too, because you realize that you're reaching for something very different or something very unique.
So
yeah.
Oh, sorry. When you say that melody, does that mean you just kind of hum into the phone?
Yeah, I hum.
Really?
It would actually be very embarrassing if somebody ever discovered the password for my phone, because there's videos of me from every angle in bad lighting, sometimes when I first wake up, sometimes late at night, singing little melodies. And so I think somebody who didn't know what my job was might think I had gone completely insane. Just because I'm singing little, it could be as simple as like, and that's a melody. So, but over the years, I've kind of, like, since I started experimenting more with different tunings on guitar. Sometimes I'll work off a guitar part, but I still have a lot of melodies saved up in my head to kind of use as a resource towards the guitar part. So yeah.
Where do you think those melodies come from? Do you think they come from your subconscious? Do you believe in the muse?
Yeah, I think it's subconscious. I think it's based on what you hear just around the neighborhood, or sometimes it's I think it can be museful, where it's just something's in you that you're feeling. I've been singing since I was a little kid, so I think that that singing is natural for me, and it's also a natural form of expression, and it became that way very, very importantly when I had a massive stutter in 7th grade or 6th grade, that I realized I could sing, and that would be my outlet. And so singing is always in my subconscious, and so I think that's why melodies flow through, and a lot of them are derivative also, and I try and dump those as soon as possible. Like if it's something that I know I've heard before, I'll kind of dump it and get rid of it.
Did the singing make it so that you were not stuttering while you were singing?
Exactly, yeah. In fact, I had a very pivotal moment in my life. In 6th grade, I was auditioning for Bye Bye Birdie. It was our class play. And I got up to read the script, and there's only a few teachers there watching. It wasn't the class or anything, but I had stressed out about it so much that I literally turned blue in the face, almost fainted on stage. So one of the teachers who was hip to stuttering, she said, "Why don't you want to sing now, Chris, and just you skip this reading part?" Because I couldn't get one word out. And when I sang, it was all good. It was all flowing, and it was a beautiful moment, actually, of triumph, because I was like, "Well, at least I have that. I can sing." And so that became really important to me, like that moment. Wow. But that actually happened a few times in school where I was asked to read in front of people, and I'd head to the nurse's office, or I would not go to school at all, because my parents were very loose about school, so that so you can stay home if you want. So just different from most kids' experience, I think.
I also heard that your parents supported your singing from a very early age. They encouraged you to be an artist.
Completely. I mean, they were very much with the opposite rule from most parents, where I think my parents were both closet eccentrics and intellectuals, and they loved the arts. But reality was that they had 6 kids, and my dad had to work. My mom had to watch us. So they didn't really get to live much of their dreams. So they encouraged me from day one. It's like had I said to them when I went to college, I'm thinking of being a lawyer, they would have said, well, that's nice. But when I said I wanted to be a songwriter or a musician, they were like, you go, you get them, you do it, you just complete encouragement. I've had a lot of talented people over the years, various friends of mine, who have had the opposite experience, where they're super talented people, and they go to their parents looking for that supportive moment, and it doesn't happen. They get, I hear this constant. In fact, it was really cool. My wife and I were driving with our kids in an Uber back from the Bahamas cruise, and we were having a chat with the Uber driver, and he had kids in college, and he was saying, well, I told them, like, they both love the arts, but I told them, don't do that because you're not making money at that, and that's not going to happen, and give it up and do something real, you do something legitimate. And it was really, really cool because I could, like I say, not for bragging rights, but just for a counter narrative, I could say, well, I actually just got back from a trip where I was singing for people, and I got paid handsomely for it, and whatever. But
Right,
I digress. I think I'm off topic.
No, that's good. You gave voice to the power of believing in your dreams, and how important a parent's support can be in guiding a young person.
Yeah, I mean, I think I took, certain ways my house growing up was very dysfunctional, which allowed me a little window for creativity in seeing the world differently, and needing an outlet for pain and sorrow and anxiety, and at a young age. So my guitar really became a great outlet for a lot of dark times, actually, growing up.
Amen.
Because both my parents were alcoholics, and so I didn't really know them sober after 4 p.m. in the daytime. But up until that point, they would be the greatest parents you've ever had. And after that, you could be anybody's guess as to what might come at you.
Right.
So I think that's where the creative wellspring kind of formed at that point in time.
Interesting. Boy.
Yes.
Well, what advice would you have for a writer who loves words and who happens to be a dancer as well? So she also loves music, but she doesn't know how to put the two together. Just hypothetically, if we knew of someone like that.
Asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend who looks just like me in the mirror.
You said writer and a dancer?
Yeah, I'm a ballroom dancer.
Oh, cool. Why can't you do both? I mean, I don't understand what
the question is, how do I find that melody? Like, just say I had a song called Things I Wish I Didn't Know.
Oh, so you want to write a song?
Yes, please.
Well, what I would do is maybe think of the dancing as the last stage.
Oh, forget the dancing.
Not forget it, but maybe keep that as the goal, as the mountaintop would be to you think it'd be cool to see you dance to your own song.
Holy shit. You mean I might as well dream bigger than I'm already dreaming? Okay, sign me up.
Absolutely. Why not? Of course. I think a lot of songwriting and writing in general is because I've co-written with a lot of very, very talented singers who asked me to write for them, and they write songs also, but they have a lot of limitations preset in their head about rhyme schemes, about every word has to have meaning, every approach has to be something that they've known before. And for me, I try and think of it in the opposite way. Whereas we go to a creative place to avoid the daily kind of mundane, rigid world. So I think it's almost a process of letting go versus versus following rules. So, like for instance, I was writing a song for my last album where I finished one verse and finished the second verse, and I was like, the song is done. But if I were to be a rules-based songwriter, I would have thought, well, I need a chorus, and I need a bridge, and I need a second chorus, and I need another chorus. And that song has 5 million plays on Spotify, and it gets spun on Sirius Radio on a regular basis. But I think they only play it because it's so short that it fits before commercials. But it doesn't matter because the creative process felt natural.
What song is that?
It's called Angel Appearing in a Small Cafe. But so for like when I've sat with these other writers, there's so many rules going on in their head about, especially about meaning. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? For me, I've written so many songs that I have no idea what they mean.
Right.
It's almost like going to therapy, where you just kind of talk and talk and talk, and you don't really know that you're making any progress at all. And then later on, you realize you were dealing with this crisis or this moment in your life, and you were processing it. And so I figured out songs like years later what they're about, even though I didn't know at the time, because I was just trying to be as open to the subconscious flowing of whatever's in there, getting it out. And, most importantly, I've tried not to ever force myself to write. I've only had to write a few times where I've had to, maybe write another record for a record label. But even then, I've tried to keep the hounds at bay and not worry about timing, because I wanted things to always feel kind of natural.
Well, and I think when you're not so specific then in the exact wording of the song, then you leave it open to interpretation for the listeners, and it can mean many different things.
Different listeners are going to take different meanings. How many times I don't know if you send music to people, but I've sent somebody a song on Spotify and said, oh, this song made me think of you. And they go, that song's about suicide. Well, I only heard the chorus and they only heard the lyrics in the middle, and the song means something completely different to both of us.
Right.
So let's say I knew I wanted the song to be kind of a bluesy country 3/4 6/8 timing. How do I get that riff going, or whatever it's called?
What I would do if I were you, do you play guitar?
No.
Do you know any guitar players?
Not really.
Well, I'd find one. I'd find a blues player, or go to YouTube and look at blues guitar players who play riffs and just sing on top of it. And just, you sing the first thing that comes to your mind when you're listening to it.
Isn't that then their song?
Well, it depends. Blues is actually a very hard style of music to copyright or claim ownership of, because every song has basically the same exact chord changes. So because of that, you copyright melody and lyrics, but not the music, basically. At least I think so. I'm not an expert, so don't quote me and don't sue me.
Okay, deal.
Right. But, blues, every song is, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5.
Right. Well, speaking of finding a guitar player, I believe, now I've checked this with everybody who was with me at your show. I believe you said that you have on Sundays, or maybe one Sunday a month, you have a group of artists to your house. Did I make that up?
I may have said that, but I may have been intoxicated also. Hopefully not. No.
That means you're uninvited.
I know. I think he's...
No. I think I was referring to was when I first started out in Boston, a guy named Martin Sexton, who's a fellow Boston songwriter from Boston. He used to have song circles on his back patio of his house, and sometimes in his house. And so he would have all the songwriters back then, we were all starting out. So we were basically doing open mic nights and open mic night features, and to be people like me, Jim Infantino, Ellis Paul, Martin Sexton, Katie Curtis, Ratsy, a few other people who went on to be touring artists for until now. There's a lot of us went national. We all would meet at that song circle, and it's when we all. It's the nice thing about it. You'd almost be like a 12-step support group for songwriting, because we'd all sit around and we'd play a song for each other and give feedback back and forth. And then you'd also hear about what gigs are new in town where you could actually make money from versus the ones that, because Boston back then, especially in the mid 90s or the late 90s, the clubs that book music would basically be so congested with bands and music that you couldn't get paid, because they'd say, well, we put you on a time slot from like 7:30 to 8 p.m., but you'll be one of 9 artists that night and you'll make $5. So the song circle, what happened there was that we would just feed off of each other as far as like, where's the newest gig in town? So then we would all play it, and so we start making money. So then we'd start to branch out. I formed a band. Most of those people stayed solo, but it was a really helpful springboard in terms of just learning to monetize your craft and how to start to travel with it and learn the road too.
Well, last question. If you could do a duet with anybody, who would it be? And I have a suggestion.
Living or dead?
Living. Female.
Living. Maybe Patty Griffin. Or,
interesting.
Oh, I love her.
I know.
Love Throw a Line's my favorite song by her.
See who else? Patty Griffin. Well, I like so many female artists. So
how about Sarah Bareilles?
Yeah, or her.
I think you would be great with her.
Yeah, she's great. I'm trying to think who else. There's so many.
Right.
Like Laurie McKenna is great. They sang on one of her records.
Lorena McKenna? Oh.
Laurie McKenna.
Okay, so I'm thinking of Tango to Evora. Anyway.
No, Laurie McKenna is a Boston songwriter. Also, I'm trying to think who else would be great. Kate Bush, maybe.
Oh, God, that would be wonderful. Jonathan, any votes? You're going to stick with the Patty Griffin?
I'm still a little starstruck that he knows Martin Sexton. I'm a huge fan. Can't stop thinking about you. I've listened to that song over 1,000 times.
Yeah, I've toured. He's maybe my the most important first friendship in music, because I've toured with him across the country probably like 5 or 6 times. In fact, last year I did a 3-month tour where we did all secondary markets, where we played towns like Mineral Point, Wisconsin, in Nevada City, California, and just lots of kind of like just one stoplight towns where there's a theater in town. And so we played there, and he would pack the place. They pack these theaters in the middle of nowhere. So his work ethic has always been very inspirational to me, and his he also he's a really good business mind. So whenever I tour with him, I kind of learn what to look for next, because he's already there.
Wow. Well, speaking of, where can we find you, Chris?
I'm at christrapper.com. I was able to get that with not relative ease. And I think I have about 4 Facebook pages now for different reasons. And I have Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
So you're everywhere. Do you have any shows coming up?
You can Google me. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music. Yeah, I have a whole tour coming up. So I'm touring all spring. I'm doing some support takes with a guy named Alan Doyle from Great Big Sea, the band Great Big Sea. He's from Newfoundland, Canada. His record right now is number 2 in Canada behind Justin Bieber.
Wow.
So,
It's a tough act to follow.
I'm touring with him in April.
And we
then
can
doing my own dates next month, and then in May and June. So I'm doing the whole country.
And we can find all that on christrapper.com.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Chris, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to hear this episode again or share it with a friend, send them to unitedpodcastnetwork.tv. That's unitedpodcastnetwork.tv. You can find this podcast and the vodcast video on demand in case you want to watch it. Find this episode and all previous episodes on the unitedpodcastnetwork.tv, and please subscribe.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.